quilt books, asking if the library would want to host Jennifer on her book tour of her new book, which just came out. And of course, I responded within seconds back to Daniel and said, absolutely. So super excited to have her here and have this great turnout. And, Cedarburg being the art community that we are, and we have the Quilt Museum in Cedarburg. It's a perfect fit. And you'll notice our quilt on the wall over there, which is just about 10 years old. But this is the quilt that was created when we opened the new library. It's a community quilt. Everyone had an opportunity to create on a patch from the quilt, and then volunteers from the Quilt Museum stitched it together for us. So it has a lot of meaning for us. So we totally understand all the meaning behind quilts and the history. It's very important. So I will now pass it on to Daniel, who will introduce Jennifer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cedarburg Public Library. Is this work? Okay. I don't, look at what it looks like. So I always say, many of you are like, I don't really care how many days Boswell has been open, but I just can't help myself. So I got to tell you anyway. So it's 5,508. And woohoo, thanks. So I wanted to mention I'm here today with Lisa Bedoin from Economwalks Books and Company. And so if you can't, so in the future, if you say the next event that we get to do is like in Muskego, and you say, I know somebody came from Muskego, so it's not that far, but you say, I don't really want to go all the way to Muskego. Lisa actually does all the pre-orders for Jennifer's books. So you can say hi to her, and when you're vacationing in Lake Country or something like that, or I believe it's also the largest Sendix. So if that's what you like doing, you can go visit her really wonderful store. Jennifer, I actually have to say, I have done at least one Jennifer Chiaverini event in Cedarburg because we once did the Quilt Museum, which was a wonderful event. But generally, we are like a traveling road show of programming. This is Jennifer's 34th book, including 12 historical novels. And to be clear, some of the quilt books are also historical novels, but I am categorizing them separately. And 22 of the Elm Creek Quilt series. I worked at Harry W. Schwartz Bookshop when I still remember somehow, because you know how that thing goes. You're like, I can't remember what happened last week, but I remember the very first event in the Harry W. Schwartz Bookshop in Brookfield. And I also remember the last event with a quilt book in 2019, where she said to me, oh, I'm never writing a quilt book again. So just goes to show, always have a tape recorder hand. Jennifer Chiaverini received the Wisconsin Library Association Outstanding Achievement Award in 2024. I don't remember the name of the book, but I read it. So she'll tell you because she knows all of them. So we are so grateful. I will say to her and the publicist, the first thing I said is, will she drive that far for this program? And she did, because she loves you. So with that said, please give her a warm hand. I don't know how to do
that. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much. The book in question, in 2020, the Wisconsin Library Association awarded Resistance Women an Outstanding Achievement Award. And since I'm up here bragging about myself anyway, last fall, they named me a Wisconsin notable author we're in a library. We have to talk about library stuff, right? For my literary contributions, or my contributions to the literary heritage of Wisconsin. So that was very cool. But it's a lifetime achievement award, I guess. So I guess they think I should be winding things down. No, I'm not going to think of it that way. But yes, I have, as Daniel told you, I've written 34 novels and 7 pattern books. And 22 of those novels are Elm Creek Quilts novels. Now, I don't recall saying that I was never going to write another Elm Creek Quilts novel, but I might very well have said that. Daniel has a good memory, I trust. So I think what I usually say is that if the story that I want to tell fits within the Elm Creek Quilt series, then I will make it an Elm Creek Quilts novel. And if, like, for example, Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker or Canary Girls or Resistance Women, I just can't shoehorn that story. I couldn't have the Canary Girls, stop building all those munitions and then take a boat across the Atlantic, travel around in central Pennsylvania for a while, get back on a ship. That would just be so impractical. No one would believe it. And I'd say it's a novel. I'm allowed to make stuff up, but nobody wants me to go that far. So if the story feels like it should be an Elm Creek Quilts novel, it'll be an Elm Creek Quilts novel. If it needs to be a standalone historical or whatever else, science fiction, vampires, who knows, then I'll write it in that genre too. But today we're here to talk about the Museum of Lost Quilts, which just came out yesterday. Wow, it's hot off the press. Oh, I burned myself. It's so hot off the presses. Well, and this is just to set the stage. It has been since 2019 since I wrote an Elm Creek Quilts novel. And that's largely because I get an inspiration for writing a novel, usually while I'm researching another novel. Is that Oprah? At last. I missed her. She stopped answering she never answers my mail. That restraining order is really hurtful. She'll never call me. Not anymore. So as I was saying, I usually get the inspiration for writing a new book while I'm writing a current book. So I was inspired to write Switchboard Soldiers after hearing about how women's wartime service during World War I convinced that notorious misogynist and anti-suffragist President Woodrow Wilson, all of a sudden he was in favor of suffrage because he was so impressed by how women conducted themselves. And after reading that while writing the Women's March, I thought, well, what were they doing that impressed him so much? And so that's how I read and learned about Switchboard Soldiers. While I was writing Switchboard Soldiers, the characters, and the real women too, the historical figures, they passed through Great Britain on their way to France from the US. And that's where I learned about all of the work that the munitionettes were doing in the UK at the time. And then that subgroup of women who worked with the yellow powder with incredibly dangerous and toxic effects. And so then I wrote Canary Girls. But after I wrote Canary Girls, I was struggling a little bit with what to do next. I wanted it to be as good a topic as these other historical novels that I love so much. And sometimes I'd come up with an idea and then I'd find out, oh, somebody else already wrote about that 2 years ago. Or I'd come up with an idea and I'd research the person and then I'd find out, oh, she was really a horrible person in real life. And I don't want to write about her or make her seem like a hero. So I was thinking about what to do, and on many long walks with my husband, we'd take long walks pretty much every morning, weather permitting. Sometimes even when the weather doesn't permit, we ignore what the weather permits and go on out anyway. And I was trying to think of different ideas and bouncing ideas off of him. And, but then what happened, I was on social media. I was on Facebook, and I usually try to avoid it because the internet is mean. But when I had to be on the internet and I had to be on Facebook and I was talking about something related with quilts or quilting, and a woman, maybe one of you here today, wrote in a comment, "I love your historical novels, but I just hope I can read one more Elm Creek Quilts novel before I die." And my first instinct was, oh no, how are you feeling? How much time do I have? And so then I thought, oh, this poor woman, I don't know who she is. She might have been making it up. She might have been a 25-year-old dude in Texas. I don't know, pretending, just trolling me by pretending to be a fan with, 6 months left to go, just to stress me out. So I started thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? Canary Girls is coming out in 2023. Whatever book I write next will be coming out in 2024. And that is the 25th anniversary of the publication of The Quilter's Apprentice. And I thought, wouldn't it be a great idea to write another Elm Creek Quilts novel to celebrate that 25-year anniversary? And so I thought, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. So then I started thinking about, okay, well, what can I write about? What should I do? And that's when I thought, well, I need to go back to the original Elm Creek Quilters. That all of my, I hear from a lot of fans that say they have come to think of the Elm Creek Quilters as friends, and they want to spend time with them and find out what's going on with them. So I thought, you know what, I need to do a classic Elm Creek Quilts novel where you see Sylvia and Sarah and Summer and Gwen and Diane are bickering, and it is at Elm Creek Manor, and it's at quilt camp. So you get to see all the quilt camp things you like so much. So really, the Museum of Lost Quilts, I wrote it really for people who have read and loved the series and wanted to go back and wanted to return. It's really a gift to those of you who have said, maybe not in such dramatic terms of before I die, but you said you'd like to read one more because you want to go back and be at Elm Creek Manor among your friends again. And then when I announced it on social media, the response was so overwhelming. Not one person said, "Oh, really? Another one of those?" Nobody said that. And this is the internet we're talking about. But what I did hear from so many people was that they were excited, they were happy, which is a relief to me because, I had been spending some time working on this book. But what so many people said were variations on, I missed that community. I want to return to that community. I miss that circle of friends. And I did not really appreciate or realize how much that community and being a part of that community, even through the pages of a book, how much that meant to readers. If I had known, I would have written another Elm Creek Quilts novel sooner. But this is the perfect time because it's the 25th anniversary and we're all here. And it's ready and it's here and you can read it. You can go home and read it tonight. So, well, I thought I would read to you. I should probably set the stage a little bit. This novel, just so you're not wondering, well, why don't they just look it up on Google? Or why don't they just post about that on TikTok? This book is set in 2004. And that isn't because it's a historical novel, although it has been called a historical novel. In fact, a few people have called it one of the best historical novels of April. And I am not going to correct them. If they're going to throw the word best in front of it, they could call it one of the best romance mysteries. And as long as they include that word best, I am good to go. So it's set in 2004 because I'm picking up kind of where I left off. And the Elm Creek Quilt timeline does not keep pace with our timeline. So, ordinary time flows for us, and that could be only a couple of months for the Elm Creek Quilters. So yes, it's 2004. I guess technically that is a historical novel, a best historical novel, by the way. So just so that you're not wondering, well, why don't they just look it up on Google? Or why does she have a flip phone? That's so odd. Well, that's because it's set in 2004. And this book, just to refresh your memory a little bit, this book is set about 2 years after Summer left to go attend grad school at University of Chicago. She took some time off. She considered going to grad school before, but really she's kind of had this ambition and maybe feeling a little bit of pressure from her mom, maybe unintentional. We don't really know yet. To be a college professor like her mom, to really fulfill her potential. So we saw this in the Winding Ways quilt when everybody was going their separate ways. And we saw it in Circle of Quilters when they were hiring 2 new people to come and take the places of the Elm Creek Quilters who were leaving. So at this point, Summer has been at grad school for about 2 years, and she was supposed to get her master's degree. And, that would include classes and writing a thesis. And she has said, no, I'm not going to be able to teach for Elm Creek Quilt Camp this summer. I am going to stay in Chicago and I'm going to get an early start on my doctorate. So I'm going to be here. And the Elm Creek Quilters are they're kind of bummed that she's not going to be there teaching, but they understand. They are a little curious when she says, "Oh, no, don't come and see me graduate. No, it's too far to drive." Some of them do think, well, that's a little strange, but okay, it is camp season. It's hard to take off during the middle of camp season. So they are a little bit surprised when Summer shows up unannounced in June, and when they weren't expecting her. She didn't even call her mom and say, "Hey, Mom, I'm coming home. Make my room ready." So it soon becomes apparent. She soon comes out with the secret, and this is early on, so I'm not going to be spoiling too much. Summer didn't finish her thesis. She didn't graduate. She got an extension to the end of the summer, but if she does not finish that thesis, she will not be able to continue on into the doctoral program because she hasn't met that important graduation requirement. If she doesn't continue on right away, she'll lose her fellowship, and that's it for her graduate school plans. So she has been struggling with this thesis, and she just is frustrated in her apartment in Chicago, and she just thinks, I need to go home to Elm Creek Manor. And she's hoping that there, surrounded by all these people who love her so much, in this place that's dedicated to creativity, she's hoping she will find the inspiration she needs to be able to get this thesis done. So I thought I would read to you an excerpt from the novel, When Summer is Coming Home, because I think that's what I want this book to feel like to so many Elm Creek Quilts fans, a coming home to Elm Creek Manor. So she's in a cab and nobody's expecting her. Oh, and you're going to see the Elm Creek Quilters, but you're also going to see a number of other guests, fan favorites, I hope, who will be making some cameo appearances. The car followed the narrow gravel road through the trees and soon emerged before a sunlit apple orchard. Summer glimpsed several women strolling amid the trees, heavy with ripening fruit. Some guests chatting happily in pairs or trios, others alone, lost in thought, perhaps pondering a new quilt design or the solution to a difficult assembly problem. Leaving the orchard behind, the cab passed a 2-story red-banked barn, climbed a low hill, and crossed the bridge over Elm Creek. The road widened on the opposite side, and all at once the manor came into view. 3 stories of gray stone and dark wood, its unexpected elegance enhanced by the rambling natural beauty of its surroundings. The shorter of the 2 wings pointed west toward the bridge, and the other wing stretched to the south. Where the 2 wings met, there were 4 stone stairs and a gently sloping ramp leading to a back door. Campers clad in casual summer clothing passed in and out, enjoying some free time before the welcome banquet and candlelight gathering, the official opening ceremonies of each new week of Elm Creek Quilt Camp. The road led into a parking lot encircling a wide central island where 2 towering elms grew, spared from the paving contractors at Sylvia's express command. The lot was half full of campers' cars and a few vehicles belonging to staff and faculty, so the cab driver pulled up behind the Elm Creek Quilts minivan, easily identified by the bright, multicolored logo displayed on both sides, a patchwork elm tree on the bank of a flowing creek. The minivan served as a shuttle to the airport, the train station, and downtown, and until Grandma's Attic Quilt Shop had closed nearly 2 years before, it had carried eager shoppers back and forth twice daily. Bonnie had been heartbroken by the loss of her business, but within the past year, she'd rebounded impressively. The previous autumn, she had accepted an old college friend's invitation to help launch the Aloha Quilt Camp on Maui, and it was off to a fantastic start. Like Summer herself, though, Bonnie would always have a place at Elm Creek Quilts. Summer paid the driver and thanked him, grabbed her backpack and suitcase, and carried both up the stairs to the back door, a broad grin spreading over her face, even as her heart pounded with something like apprehension. The door swung open just as she reached for the handle. Well, if it isn't Summer Sullivan, the petite octogenarian standing in the doorway exclaimed. She wore a light cotton capris in a lilac print, a short-sleeved lilac-hued blouse, and a plum-colored cap atop her cloud of fluffy white hair. Hi, Vinny, Summer greeted the camper, surprised. A lively favorite of the faculty, Vinny attended Elm Creek Quilt Camp every August to celebrate her birthday and to reunite with far-flung quilting friends she had met on previous visits. You're here early this year. Oh, yes. One of the other cross-country quilters couldn't make it during my birthday week, so we adapted. Vinny shrugged cheerfully. Are you teaching this week after all? Sarah said you weren't. Is she holding out on me? No, Sarah's right. I don't have any classes scheduled this week. Summer would have, except that in early March, as Sarah was preparing to arrange the faculty and course schedule for the upcoming season, Summer had told her she wouldn't be available. After finishing her master's in May, she had intended to remain in Chicago for the summer quarter and immediately plunge into her PhD studies. Things hadn't worked out quite the way she had planned. So after this friendly greeting with Vinny, she's going to go in and see all of her friends and her mom. And of course, they're going to want to know what's wrong. And she's going to say, can't I just come home to visit? But they get it out of her. And she does let them know that she's struggling to finish her thesis. And they all promise to help do whatever they can to help her get through it. Agnes has her own idea to how to get Summer's creativity going on again. So as if Summer didn't have enough to do, Agnes has the idea that Summer is the perfect person to help her with the project. Union Hall, which you've seen in the quilters, the Union Quilters and in some other books, it is badly in need of remodeling, refurbishing, repairs, everything. And so they are going. The Waterford Historical Society is going to launch a capital campaign, and Agnes thinks that the perfect way to launch the capital campaign is to have a quilt exhibit, but not just any quilt exhibit. It has to be quilts that have some kind of significance to local history. It is the Waterford Historical Society headquarters, after all. So Summer, who is a quilter, she has lived in Waterford since childhood, and she's also is, of course, a trained historian. She's the perfect person to take on this job of curator, tracking down quilts, discovering who made them, what's the history, what is the role that it played in Elm Creek Valley history, and then, of course, writing up descriptions to post on the wall in the gallery beside the quilt. So as you may know, if you've been coming to some of these events for the past 25 years, I do like to make some of the quilts that my characters make in the book. And I brought one of them along, and it's also featured in Union Quilters. So I thought it would be the perfect one to bring. So my lovely assistant, Marty, my husband, he's going to help me show the Loyal Union sampler to you all. We'll be right back. Like this. And we're both rather short, so yeah, we're not terribly tall. Oh, wrong way, 90 degrees. So we need tall people, and we'll walk over that way in a moment. But pretend I'm 6'2". I know that's hard. Here, maybe Marty, if we step apart a little bit, we can get a better. There we go. And then we'll kind of parade it this way. Don't step on the quilt so that people over here can also see it. Hello. Yeah. Sorry, I ran my husband into the podium. Sorry, I'm so short. Blame my mom. It's not my dad's fault. He was 6 foot. And thank you, Marty. Thank you, Marty, my lovely sister. My assistant and driver. And there he goes. Well, that's the only quilt I brought today because, it's heavy and my arms are short. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the Museum of Lost Quilts, or we can make fun of Marty. He's leaving the room. No, we wouldn't. We don't make fun of him. He's wonderful. Oh, and that's another anniversary. We're going to be married 30 years next month. 30 years. How does he put up with me? The man deserves a medal, or at least a quilt. Putting up with me for 30 years. I don't know how he does it. I don't know what his secret is. He's easy to put up with. You know his secret, or is that a question? It's a question. Okay. It is a question how he put up. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, you even have the bag. You even have the tote. You both of the tote bags. Wow, I'm very impressed. Wonderful, thank you. Well, she thinks I'm the most awesome human being who ever lived. I'm not saying it. I'm just repeating what she said. She kind of wonders how in the world I managed to write all those books and make quilts and raise two boys and take care of that incredibly difficult man I'm married to. No. He's wonderful. I think you make time for the things that are important to you, and it's, I'm very lucky that my family is very supportive of anything I decide to try to do, whether it's learning to quilt or writing a book or anything like that, traveling on a book tour. My husband and my two sons have always been incredibly supportive and encouraging. My mom too, she's fabulous too. And they all try to help out however they can. It's very difficult to quilt when I'm in the middle of writing a manuscript. So it's usually I'm doing one or the other. Although I do like to go up especially if I'm struggling a little bit with writing, it's nice to go up the quilt room and then just like, if I only have time to look at the fabric, I can at least look at it, but sometimes that helps me refocus my creativity, which is probably what Agnes is trying to do for Summer in the book, so that it can kind of work through some of the blocks, and then I can get back and work on the other thing. But I mean, I don't party. So, all the partying time that, I don't do that. So that frees up more time to work and to quilt and stuff like that. So, I just try to, I have support from my family, and I just try, make time for things that are important to me. But how long I can continue to sustain this pace remains to be seen. That remains to be seen. That's an open question still. Any other questions for me? Yes.
You've accomplished so much. Can you talk about how it was at the beginning? Did you imagine that you would pursue this career and have 34 books by now? Or did it grow?
Well, I always have wanted to be a writer. Ever since I learned how to read, I've wanted to share stories with other people the way my favorite authors shared stories with me. And I knew I wanted to write novels. That was just the form that felt right for me. I have done some short stories because that's what they make you do in school. But you might have noticed I'm a little long-winded. So the novel was really more of a good form for me. I just like that. It's just the right size, Some people love to run marathons. Some people like 10Ks. Sometimes some people like to just walk around the block. It's all good, and you find the size that fits for you. And I really like the novel form. So it was something I always wanted to do. And I knew that I was in control of how hard I worked at it. But that's it. Everything else was up to someone else. I would have to find a publisher who would be willing to take a chance on my book, and I'd have to find an audience who would be willing to take a chance on me. And I was very, very fortunate that I was able to find both back in 1990. Well, I sold the novel in 1997. It came out in 1999, and quilters especially, embraced it, this unknown book by an unknown author. And that was at a time, I was thinking about this the other day, when I was trying to sell this book, it seemed like every publisher and agent wanted books with an edge. That was the buzzword, edgy. And The Quilter's Apprentice is many things. It is not edgy, unless you're talking about like a straight edge, an acrylic, or, a nicely pressed seam. Oh, that's a very edgy seam. So, I was trying to sell a book, and I was kind of told, readers want edgy in 1997. And I thought, I don't really need edgy. I like warm and cozy and comfort and friends and, people confronting problems and finding the moral courage within themselves to do the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's better drama for a story. And I was very lucky that I found an editor who said she really thought other people want this book too. And then, ever since the first book came out in 1999, I have been so incredibly fortunate that you exist and that librarians exist and independent booksellers like Lisa and Daniel exist. Because without librarians, recommending this book. And I think David's woohoo, Daniel's doing woohoo over there. Lisa probably is too. Yeah, Lisa's waving, hi. Without, librarians to say, oh, my patrons would love this, and putting it on a nice display table, and of course, ordering it for their libraries and putting it on the shelves, or independent booksellers who carry it in their stores when they have limited space and limited funds. And, if they spot a reader, oh, you like this book? I know you would love The Quilter's Apprentice, putting it in their hands. And then all of you who took something out of your fabric budget and put it toward a book instead. And when you enjoyed the story, you shared it with your friends. You told your sister to buy it. You bought it for your mom for Mother's Day. Hint, hint, hint. And sometimes you really, you forced your book club to read it. And now some of those people in your book club are quilters now, aren't they? Yep, that happens. So I really know that I owe it. I could control how hard I worked. I could control how long I was going to keep trying. But all of these other things had to happen. All of these other people that I didn't even know had to become involved in order for me to have this career and to be still fulfilling this childhood dream 25 years later, although it started earlier. But since, the fact that I still have a career, most people don't get the opportunity to write 34 novels. And I'm very, very fortunate that I've been able to do that. And I know I owe it to the people in this room, even if you were dragged here under duress because you're the driver, like my husband. Oh, you're looking at someone. Oh, yeah. I was secretly directing that comment to you, sir. Thank you for being here. I saw you smiling at some of my jokes, though. Yeah. You didn't understand a word. No. But I really am grateful because I love to do this work. I really want the Museum of Lost Quilts to make readers happy. That was why I wrote it. Not just for the woman who may no longer be with us. I really hope she is. Because, she's the one who really made me think, oh gosh, it has been a while, hasn't it? But I wanted these books to make you happy. And I hope that it will when you have the chance to read it. So, yes, a question up here.
So you always wanted to be a writer.
Yes.
What's your quilting background, and how is it that your first book was about quilting? Where was the idea?
Well, I became a quilter I mentioned the 30th anniversary. They're all going to take us out to dinner. When I got married, I wanted to have a beautiful heirloom wedding quilt because I just admired quilts. And I knew that, it's not the kind that you buy at the discount store. That's not the real thing. I lived in Pennsylvania at the time, so I knew what the real thing looked like. But I didn't know how to quilt, and I didn't have any relatives who quilted. We had a lot of crocheters. My grandmother did beautiful crochet. My sister now has taken that up, but no quilters. So we couldn't afford to buy one because my now husband, then fiance Marty, he was in grad school, and I was teaching part-time at Penn State, teaching for the English department, and then trying to write my first novel. So we couldn't afford to buy. I mean, we were just, every penny we earned, it had to go to bills and food and stuff. So I thought, well, if I want to make a quilt, if I want one of these wedding quilts, I'm going to have to make it myself. So I got this booklet from Leisure Arts called Teach Yourself How to Quilt. And I followed the step-by-step instructions and, got fabric and followed all the instructions and made this. Now, it wasn't the beautiful heirloom wedding quilt that I had envisioned. It was a 9-block sampler. But by making that sampler, I really learned all the essential skills that you needed to be able to make a quilt and how to analyze a block and figure out how it would go together. And I must have inherited some of my mom's. She was a math teacher before she retired. She really loved geometry. I think I got that. Must be on the same gene as height because I got her love for geometry as well. And so I just really took off, and I just loved everything about quilting, making the quilts, the folklore behind quilt patterns, the evocative block names, the ties to history, and of course, the quilting community. That is what I loved most of all, the warmth, the friendship, the occasional controversies, hand quilting versus machine quilting. Will they ever get along? And then, that was 25, 30 years ago, so I think there's more reconciliation there. Would that would be applied to all of the world's issues, wouldn't that be lovely? So I always wanted to be a writer. I became a quilter and I was teaching writing and trying to write a novel, trying to figure out what to write about. And the advice that I received as a young writer was write what you know. So I took that advice very seriously and I wanted to write about the quilting community. And I wanted to write for my quilting friends because I thought they would really enjoy seeing themselves and their friends and the art of quilting depicted accurately and with affection from the inside. Remember the quilted northern, the toilet paper controversy, those animated commercials where the ladies were at the quilting bee with knitting needles, knitting their quilt, all those kind of things. I wanted no knitting needles putting quilts together for me. I wanted the facts. I wanted it accurate. Did any of you remember that, or am I the only? Yeah, okay. Remember how appalled we all were that they got that so wrong? Those were the days. It was a more innocent time back then. But I also wanted to write for non-quilters to share with them some insight into this world and this community and this art form that I love so much. So I've always said I don't really write about quilts. I write about quilters. And I think I am, from what I hear from readers, a lot of them found that so appealing, they decided to become quilters themselves. So another wonderful contribution to humanity that I have made. And then some people said, oh, I want to read about them, but I don't want to make one. And then it's like, great. If you have quilter friends, they will take pity on you and make quilts for you. So it works out for everybody, whatever you decide to do. So really, it all was tied together. My love for quilting, my life as a quilter, and then being encouraged to write what I know. And that is what I do when I write the quilting novels. But for the historical novels, it's a little bit different. Of course, I'm a little bit more experienced. But for the historical novels, it's write what I want to learn about. So if I come across a fascinating historical figure or a really interesting historical event, and I want to learn more about it, and I ask myself as I'm reading about it, why didn't we learn about this in history class? Then I figure, there's probably other people who feel the same way. And so I do more research and I write a book so that I can share what I've learned with other people, so that a lot of these women who made these contributions to history won't be forgotten. And we can remember them, whether it's the telephone operators with the U.S. Army Signal Corps or, closer to home, Mildred Fish Harnack, who was with the Red Orchestra anti-Nazi resistance cell in Berlin from the 1930s into the early 1940s. She's a Wisconsin woman that we are learning a lot more now, especially here in the Milwaukee area. She was born in Milwaukee, and also on the UW campus because she was a student there. But these women who their stories need to be remembered. They need to be remembered and honored for their contributions. And so I like to learn what I can and write the story and share it with other people, so other people can learn about them too. So, yes, a question back there. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
My question is, when you write a novel, do your characters take over and drive the writing, or do you stay outlines?
Well, that's a false dichotomy. It's not either or. My characters, I am the one writing the story. My characters don't like, oh my gosh, what is she doing? What is she doing now? She's controlling my fingers. I hear some writers describe it like, oh, the characters just took over. I'm not making fun. Everybody's writing process is different. I am the one doing the work. Wouldn't it be lovely if the muse would inhabit me and mind could wander because the muse is making my hands type and the characters are just doing their thing? No, lucky writers for whom it just flows. For me, it's work. I have to think about how I want the sentence to sound. I have to do the historical research myself. I have to try something and hope it's good enough and go back later and realize, no, that's not good enough. That needs to be done over. So for me, I am the one doing the work of creating this story. It is work that I love to do. I'm happy to do it. Maybe not every day, But, not every stage of the process. Yes, spending 2 hours on a single sentence is a little bit, I don't know, nuts, perhaps is the proper phrase. But yeah, the characters never get to take control, and I can go and quilt while they write the book themselves. Which is what, oh my goodness, the thought of ever writing a book by AI, I just find I want AI to do my laundry. I don't want AI to write my novels and make my quilts so I can do my laundry. AI can do the laundry. I'm going to do the fun stuff like quilting and writing and reading and baking cookies. That's what I'm going to do. So, it's always me doing it, but I don't really make a formal outline where every single step along the way is planned. I have a general sense of where the story is going to go. I have to do more of that when I'm writing historical novels because I know that my readers like me to be historically accurate, and I try to do that to the best of my ability. So I make a timeline and I figure out, okay, now what historical events do I want to cover? What characters really should appear in this story? And that sort of thing. So, it's not everything is just free flowing over here, or you plan out every little detail. It's a little bit from both worlds, and that's what works for me. But whatever works for you, if you're a writer, any system that helps you get a book written, it is hard enough to write a book without somebody in your ear telling you there's only one way to do it, or there's only two ways to do it. You have to pick one camp or the other. You have to pick hand quilting or machine quilting. You can't, don't mingle the groups. Whatever gets you to get your book written to your satisfaction, whatever brings you joy, then that's the method you should go with. Some days a little bit more organization for me, some day a little bit more free flowing. It really depends on the day. So I think we have time for one more question, and then we should maybe sign some books. Marty's like, yeah, we got to get wheels up, 10 minutes. No, yes, that there. She has a present for me. Ooh. Do you want to take the mic? Are you Sarah?
Sarah's my niece.
Oh goodness! So you got my email.
Yes.
Oh, thank
and
goodness.
got
They were
permission
bouncing
to
and
come because I was coming from Minnesota.
okay. Oh, coming from Minnesota.
Minnesota. Just over in La Crescent. And my second oldest sister was a quilter, and she loved your books. And she finished this one last fall, and then I quilted it for her. Machine quilted it because I just got a machine quilter, and I still hand quilt as well. And
oh, you got applause from me.
I do both.
Here, I can hold this for you.
But she finished this, and then she passed away in January, and it was her mission to bring this to you, and so I'm finishing it for her. And I finished it by the little note that she had put in here. I finished sewing that in after she had passed. And it says in here, if I can read it without crying.
No, you can cry. We cry a lot in the world of quilts.
It says, thank you for bringing to life and celebrating the courageous women of our history. Geraldine Harper of Oroco, Wisconsin, 2023. And this is, I brought her obituary so you can see a picture of her and read about her.
Should we show everybody the quote? Yeah, let's come on.
This is, she really loved the suffrage. Let's see.
Oh, look at how beautiful this is. Oh my goodness. We're going to have to show you the back
She worked in a quilt
too.
shop in Oroco right up almost to the time she passed away. And she had a fight with cancer and she beat it. But then she had influenza A last winter, and that took so many people. But she was a strong political woman, and I won't say which side because we don't want to go into that. But
Maybe we do.
But she was a business person. She was an organic farmer. She worked at the city hall in La Crosse and the clerk's office, and she's a great business person. She was a very strong woman. For all of us read your books, she shared books, and my other sister that came along, we all share your books and buy books of yours. And
Pass them around.
oh yes, we
and
love
talk
them.
about them and argue about
yes,
them.
and we just got my niece started reading them.
Yes, the next generation.
Yes, and I'm teaching her how to quilt.
Good.
Yes.
Passing
So-
on your knowledge.
Yes.
Sylvia would be proud.
Yes. So we've got
Thank
another.
you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I feel bad for saying how I got the inspiration for writing this. But thank you so much, Jerry. My mom's name is Geraldine, so that's. Did she? So when it said like Geraldine, oh, the books are dedicated to me. I think we should stick with that story. I think that's a great story. Well, thank you so much. And I think that it's so beautiful. I'm so glad you came, and thank you to the librarians for making room for you today. I'm really glad you were able to be here. And I'm so glad that all of you were here, be able to be here. We'll have this out where I'm signing so you can get a close look at the beautiful artistry of Aunt Jerry. Is that what you call her? You call her Aunt Jerry, and we can learn more about her. I'm reading it right now, but I'll let you read it on your own too. I think I will be over out the glass doors and over on the left signing books if you're interested. And I just want to say one more time too, thank you so much for supporting my work all along. And I think we can take with us from Jerry's family that quilting does have a way of bringing together the generations, and storytelling is a part of that as well. And one of the things that I love to do in the Elm Creek Quilts novels is show how quilting can make strangers into instant friends. And that's something that I really try to capture in the Museum of Luxe Quilts. So I hope you will enjoy your return to Elm Creek Manor. Oh, I forgot one other thing I should say. As I was speaking today, I thought, I'm really making it sound like this is the last one. It's not. It's not the last one. There will be, this is usually the last question. So what are you working on next? That's what we did. Well, it's not me, it's whoever asks it. But yes, there will be another Elm Creek Quilts novel out in April. Right now, the publication date is April 1st. I don't know if they're trying to send me a message about that. But it's not an April Fool's joke. It really is coming out. Well, they could change the date, but it is coming out. And it is called The World's Fair Quilt. And it's, I'm so glad that was your response. If you went, it would be a long drive to Stevens Point after this. I'm not from Stevens Point, but I'm speaking to a bunch of librarians tomorrow at breakfast. So they're pretty good. Can you imagine breakfast with librarians? Is there anything that, well, you do it every day. What was I rambling on about? Oh, yes, the World's Fair Quilt. It will be coming out in April 2025, and it's a dual timeline novel in which, well, you'll see in the Museum of Lost Quilts that Elm Creek Quilt Camp is facing some financial issues. You get little hints of them from Sarah's perspective and Summer's perspective. But in this next book, Sylvia has to confront them head on. So you see Sylvia dealing with these unexpected financial difficulties, and those alternate with chapters where Sylvia is finding hope in memories of when she was a young teenager during the Great Depression. And she and her elder sister, Claudia, collaborated on a quilt that they wanted to enter in the Sears National Quilt Competition for the Century of Progress Exposition, also known as the World's Fair, the Chicago World's Fair of 1933. And we knew from an earlier book that Sylvia had participated in this. Well, now you actually get to see what that was like. And if you think of how beautifully Sylvia and Claudia worked together in all things, well, it was a breeze from start to finish. Not really, but you know what? That would have been a really boring book if there were no conflict. So that will be coming out pretty much a year from now. And I hope that gives you something to look forward to after you finish reading the Museum of Lost Quilts. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. That was really wonderful. And she is our keynote speaker tomorrow morning in Stevens Point at Wisconsin Library Association Conference. No, but that Sarah will be. So, yeah. So if you'd like, she'll be right outside the door signing and selling. And, And Jennifer, we have a little gift for you. We have a flower pot and a card to thank you. So thank you, everyone. No, you can take it with you.